You want to deal with me? First of all, are you a public servant? Oh yeah? There's my fee. You're not a public servant? Okay. There's my fee. You want to talk to me? There's my fee. Your notice has been served. That's why I got this t-shirt. All right, folks, we're going to have a very difficult conversation today. Very easy for me to explain these things, but it's a concept that a lot of other folks, including myself at one point or another, really have a hard time wrapping their heads around. And it's the concept of there are no heroes out there that are coming to save you. There's no Superman that's going to fly in and save the day. You are your own superhero. You have to find your superhero costume, put it on, and fight the good fight, whether you like it or not. If you don't do that, you will be taken advantage of. Not a matter of if, but when. You will be taken advantage of. You will be manipulated. You will be thrown in jail. You will have your properties unlawfully seized and taken away. You will have your freedom taken away. You will have your kids taken away from you. I'm not saying this to frighten anybody, but these are things that happen, maybe not all of them to one individual, but certainly it has happened that one individual has experienced all of those traumas. But you can certainly count on one or two or a few of those things happening to you throughout the course of your life. It's almost guaranteed. So what do we do? What do we do? There's no one out there that's going to save us. So number one thing is we save ourselves. We don't wait for some knight in shining armor to come along and rescue us. We do this preemptively, and we do this for our own selves and our own families and our own friends. We are the shining light of the world, embodied in this physical body right now, but shining the light of source behind it. It's story time, and I'm going to share with you a 3-part story. There's going to be a physical component, a mental component, and a spiritual component to this story. And I hope that by the end of this that you'll understand how powerful that you actually are in order to evoke these kind of changes in your own life. Because I spent a long time, even up until recently, looking for the knight in shining armor. Comparing myself to other people, comparing my cases and my situations and my issues with those of others who are not me, who are not going through the same things as me, who are not confronted by the same circumstances. So it makes no sense for me to copy somebody else's notice or somebody else's documents or paperwork in my own fight, because that's not me. That's not my situation. So I need to figure that out for myself. With regards to the law and dealing with the legal system, nothing that I can get as far as a template or somebody else's writing will serve me. Not to the same degree, anyway, as something that I wrote myself that came from the heart, that came from the soul level. Nothing will even compare to that, even if it's poorly written. And you might be asking yourself, well, if it's poorly written, it's not going to work. Let's first of all look a little bit about what we mean by works. Does it work? I hear this often, and I've said this myself. Does it work? What are we saying here? When we say, does it work, it's almost saying, is this a scam that is going to benefit us? Can we get to some sort of resolution or remedy through trickery, is basically what that's saying, right? Does it work is saying, were you able to pull it off? And in other words, did your scam pay off? Or did you get caught, right? It's almost like hacking language. Did it work? Remedy is not about did it work. Remedy is about not giving up until you receive the remedy that you're due. So it's not a matter of did it work or did it not work. It's a process. And it's basically, you have to look at it as an unending process that you may never get to the end of it. And if you do, you may not know that you've received remedy. It may not always be clear. You may get there and not realize that you're there for some time. So let's look at the physical side of this to start. Very easy to lean on these days, the medical establishment, the therapists out there, and the psychologists of the world, and the psychiatrists of the world, and the gurus, right? Those people that we assume have some knowledge about the body and about physicality and in the mundane world that we just don't have, right? Because we didn't go to school and we're in, medical college for 10 years. So we know nothing about this, right? Bullshit. We know ourselves at the physical level more than any doctor, than any therapist ever could. And anyone, you know yourself more at the physical level than anybody else. And we could say the same thing at the mental and spiritual level that we'll talk about here in a second. But let's just stick to the physical for now. I know my body. I know the sensations. I know the signs more and better than anybody else, than any other doctor. Let me give you an example. This year has been very challenging for me as far as physical ailments go. I've not been feeling good. I've been dealing with things like depression and anxiety. Those are ongoing things that I'm working through. I'm making amazing progress, but it's something that I'm very cognizant of, that I'm probably never going to reach the end of it, right? Just like addictions. For a long time, I was a smoker, and I do still smoke occasionally, but I've got it under control now. I don't need to smoke. I smoke because I want to, right? As opposed to before, when I was smoking 2 packs a day, this was just an automatic habit at this point, and it was somewhat beyond my control. But I've got it under control now, and I decide, right? But it's very easy for the smoking to become almost a spirit of its own and to be controlling your actions, just like any other habit can. But we get to a point through trial and error, through practice, of exerting some control, and maybe even control is not the right word, of just having some autonomy. Are we going to allow the autonomy to be some sort of an external force, like with authority, or do we want to have authority for our own selves and our own lives? That's really what it comes down to. A lot of people underestimate their power in deciding their own fate when they're met with these sort of opportunities, right? Yes, it's adversity, but there are opportunities for growth and evolution. I'm prone to bug bites, right? And that makes the physical part of it very difficult to deal with sometimes. Mosquitoes. It sucks. They create massive welts on my skin. I get these crazy allergic reactions to all bug bites. But mosquitoes is something I've just learned to live with. It's, in a sense, I'd rather they bite me than my family members, and as long as they're biting me, they're not biting them. There's that way of looking at it. Sort of being a hero in that situation for my family, I guess. But beyond that, I've just learned to cope with it. Ticks are another thing. Ticks, not only do they cause an insane, itchy, painful reaction on my skin, it stays there for months and months and months, and sometimes a year plus. I still have this itchy bite on my skin. So I got bit by one in May. I've got 4 or 5 bites now on my body that are healing from ticks specifically. And the one that I got in May, I inadvertently scratched it pretty bad while I was sleeping. I forgot that I had the tick bite there. My body sort of got the best of me, and I ended up scratching it with my toes. Anyway, all that to say, I let in some type of staph or strep infection. I'm not sure what it is. Doctors were kind of puzzled by it. I was prescribed an antibiotic cream. And we won't get into the whole germ warfare versus terrain theory. That's a conversation for another day. I'm not going to talk about that here. I have my own theories on that, and we won't touch on that in this video, because this video is about being your own hero, and I want to stick to that topic. This thing, after it got infected, it just wouldn't heal. Even with the antibiotic cream, it just wouldn't go away. And I followed the directions, I followed the advice from the doctor to a T, and was still not getting relief. So I ended up going back to see another doctor, getting another second opinion. She recommended oral antibiotics. So I went on that course of antibiotics pretty strictly. She also gave me a corticosteroid cream that really has cleaned up the infection quite well. I've got nice new skin here. I see that there are bubbles forming around the outside, so it looks like it might even start scabbing over again like it did. Hopefully not. But I went through the whole course of antibiotics. The infection started to clear up. The corticosteroid cream was definitely reducing the inflammation so that it allowed the skin to heal. It's not nearly as itchy anymore. So there was that. However, in the process of treating myself for this bacterial infection, I triggered shingles because medication, stress, which I've been dealing with a lot of stress. My grandfather passed away. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff at work, a lot of issues with the family, so stress levels are definitely high. The steroids are also known to trigger shingles for anybody who doesn't know what shingles is, it's a recurrence of the chickenpox virus. It's like the chickenpox virus comes back out of dormancy, and it's been probably 30 years. It's been sitting dormant in my nerves, waiting for the opportunity to spring back up. So my immune system was lowered. I was under a lot of stress. I had been taking antibiotics and other medications and steroids, which are known to trigger a flare-up of the shingles virus. So then right after the physical infection started to clear up, bam, now I've got a viral infection that I'm dealing with. And now I'm on antivirals, and the pain is just so intense that I'm also taking another medication, naproxen for pain, and that's causing stomach issues. So you can see how these things roll into each other. And maybe from taking this harsh medication, it's going to cause stomach ulcers, and then I'm going to have stomach issues to deal with. Like it's very easy to get caught in this downward spiral of depression and anxiety, and like, I'm never going to get through this. But there's another way of looking at this, which is that I will get better. No matter what, I feel okay right now. I don't feel great, but also I could probably feel a lot worse. So, but I'm not saying that to say like, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that bad, it's not the end of the world. I hate that mentality. I hate that way of looking at things. It is that bad. It's always that bad, but it's also always that good. So it's a matter of balancing things out and checking in with yourself to say, am I overreacting here a little bit? Or is there actually something to be thankful for and grateful for in all of this? And it's been an empowering process. You know, that's been the positive side of all this, is that I healed my own body, okay? I went and got a prescription for certain things, and that allowed the infection to clear up and yada, yada, yada. And I've got doctors that are really, some of them are willing to listen and some not so much. And some are clearly guessing on how to treat these things, and others are pretty sure. More recently, when I was diagnosed with with shingles, you know, for a couple of days, I had no idea what it was. I've got this really itchy band of like blisters coming up on my chest and my upper abdomen area, and I have no idea what it is. At first I thought, are these more bug bites? It seemed like flea bites almost, because there was like a line of them. But then the pain started to set in, and it's a very strange nerve pain. It's like, it's at the superficial level, like you feel like you've been punched. Like it feels like a bad bruise, but there's nothing there. There's nothing at the superficial surface level. So eventually, putting mine and my wife's minds together, we came up with what it probably was, which was shingles. And then researching it, I determined, yes, that's probably what it is. And I'd done plenty of research, watched lots of videos, did lots of reading. So when I went in to talk, I was desperate, right? All the clinics here, the medical system, overwhelmed in this area. I'm sure it's common all over Canada, probably all over the world at this point. The systems, the clinics here backed up. People lined up outside the door. So I went to several different clinics, couldn't get seen in a reasonable amount of time, so I had to go to the ER. And I waited in the ER for probably about 4 hours before I finally saw a doctor. And I only talked to the doctor for about 2 minutes. This is how the conversation went. Sounds like you got an itchy rash from what I understand. Yeah, check it out, you know. I'm pretty sure it's shingles. Yeah, good diagnosis. First thing the doctor says to me, good diagnosis. So he recognized that I did my research and I came to the same conclusion that he would come to. I immediately followed that up with, okay, so what are you going to prescribe me? Valacyclovir? Yes, that's exactly what I would have suggested. So I waited 4 hours to have a 2-minute conversation with the doctor to confirm exactly what I already knew because I did my due diligence. I didn't have to go and waste 4 hours of my life. If I had the ability somehow to interface directly with the medical system, I would have prescribed myself that medication. And I would have done the research needed to know what are the side effects, how do you take it properly. Here's another example of why you can't count on other people to be your hero. At the pharmacy, when I got this prescription for antivirals, this antiviral medication here, valacyclovir, I forget what the brand name is, but it's well known. Pharmacist says, take 2 tablets twice a day. Doctor says, take 2 tablets 3 times a day. Bottle says, take 2 tablets by mouth 3 times a day for 10 days. So you have conflicting information here. How am I going to know what the correct procedure is? Should I trust the pharmacist? Should I trust the doctor? Should I just do what the bottle says? Should I trust what I saw on a YouTube video from another doctor? Should I get a second opinion or a third opinion from another doctor? Is this whole process going to just consume my life and I can't work and I can't spend time with my family or do the things that I love? That's what ends up happening for most people. And then they end up getting down and depressed. Okay? Now, notice the theme here. The theme, and we'll compare when we get to the mental and the spiritual side of this. The theme on the physical side is that I'm powerless. I'm powerless to heal myself. I need to leverage the help of other people in order to get well. Do you see how that's giving up your power? Right? It's saying, I don't have the ability to heal myself. Nature doesn't heal anything. I need to go and lean on this medical system and in order to get a prescribed synthetic medication in order to get well. And that's the only way. Right? Again, we're not going to get into terrain theory versus germ warfare. That's a whole other conversation. I'm not entirely convinced one way or another because I had a really hard time treating this infection naturally and it's still not completely cleared up. But yet, as soon as I introduce conventional pharmaceutical medicine, it starts to clear up. That's kind of hard for me to dispute, isn't it? But again, that's a whole other conversation. I just want you to recognize how the power is always in somebody else's hands to help you get well. No, that's not how it works. Nature heals primarily, first and foremost, above all else. Our bodies heal themselves. The medication, all it does is it allows your body to heal itself. Because what's probably happening is the body and the mind and the spirit are just constantly bombarded with toxic chemicals and just negativity and things that are counterproductive to our health. We're just constantly showered in these things. And then we wonder why we're all sick. Yeah, no wonder. So the body's already dealing with more than what it can handle. Then you add to that some type of disease or illness or pathogen. Of course, your body's going to have a hard time fending it off. And it's only by sort of cheating with the medications that we're able to get past this, never addressing the core root of what the fuck is going on here to make us sick in the first place and eliminating all the toxin from our environments. That's not factored in. It's just, how can we mask the symptoms? How can we get through this moment without changing a goddamn thing that we're doing in our lifestyle? You know, doctors won't discuss lifestyle with you anymore. It's not something that they talk about. It's not something that they even want to entertain. You know, maybe if you get a homeopath or a naturopath doctor, they might be willing to engage with you on those sort of things, but probably not. I'm willing to give credit where it's due. With the help of some doctors, with the help of a little bit of medication, I was able to work with nature to heal myself. I did the work. Okay? You get where I'm going with this yet? I could say the same for many, many different things, physical ailments I've dealt with, my neck pain, my back pain, my shoulder, you know. If I had just relied on the physiotherapist and the doctors to get me through it, well, when I went to get an x-ray done on my C3 and C4 vertebrae, there was clearly an issue there. But the doctor, no problem, no issue. It's not bad enough to be concerned about. Really, so I've got chronic inflammation in 2 discs, and it's clear on the x-ray that there's a problem there, but it's not something that I should worry about. That sounds like something that a doctor who prescribes a lot of medication might say, right? Because no doubt they get some type of kickback for it. But let's not go there. In the end, I'm the one that was my own hero. I put on my own Superman cape and I saved myself. Now let's look at the same sort of situation, but from a mental perspective now. Okay? So there's a lot of research now into things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, all these things. There's plenty of studies, plenty of research now that we should be able to make informed decisions for ourselves without leaning too heavily on the medical or the psychotherapist's systems. We should be able to do the same thing that I've just explained to you at the physical level. We should be able to do the same thing at the mental level. Start by reading some books. Start by doing some inner work. Start by going inward and stop looking for answers to your mental issues externally. And realize that if these issues can be created at the internal level, then they can also be solved at the internal level. Let me give you a perfect concrete example. Depression and anxiety aside, I don't want to talk about that in this video because, again, I think that that's a whole topic in and of itself because that's a big one. And that's a very delicate subject that I approach with caution because saying the wrong thing may give someone the wrong impression on what's going on within themselves. Because, again, people are so willing to try to find the answers externally, not so willing to go inward and confront those demons in order to find out what the core root of the issue is. Same with the physical ailments. Most people are not willing to look at their lifestyle and their diet and their lack of exercise and realize, holy shit, these things are happening because I'm not taking care of myself. It's the whole Occam's razor, right? The most simplest solution is probably the right one. And that's usually what happens here in terms of taking care of yourself. But at the mental level, with things like PTSD, let's talk about this in terms of relationships specifically. So I don't reveal this to too many people. It's something that I keep quite guarded and private in my life. But, you know, I've dealt with a lot of heartache and a lot of situations with my partner and with my family that, you know, probably a lot of people, if they knew of how bad it is, they would be appalled. They would be wondering, how do you people live this way? And it's not been without a lot of conflict and a lot of tears shed and a lot of pain, both physically and mentally and emotionally. It's been hard, and I won't ever try to pretend like it hasn't been. It was quite honestly fucking horrible, and a lot of times, in a lot of situations, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get through from one moment to the next. And between you and I, which is funny to say when you're posting a public video, you know, I often thought of taking my own life. I never took any steps or took any actions to go through with it or to even come up with a plan. But the dark thoughts were enough to make me realize that something's going on here. This is not right. If I'm having these type of dark thoughts where I'm thinking about hurting myself or taking my own life, even if I'm not serious about it, that's a huge red flag internally to go, something's not right here. You need to change your ways. You need to change the way you think and you feel about these things, because if you keep going down this path, bad things are going to happen, right? This is something I say to my family often, is that if we keep going down this path, bad things are sure to happen, you know? And I phrase it in a way that's very simplistic, but with kids, you kind of have to do that so that they understand the severity of the nature of what's happening. Relationship trauma is PTSD. They're synonymous. It's very difficult when you've been through years and years, decades for some people, of trauma in a relationship. It's very hard not to feel resentful. It's very hard not to be able to get to a place of forgiveness or doing things differently or positive change or what have you, of breaking those unhealthy cycles. And my partner and I, our relationship is no different. We've got some serious issues that need to be worked through. And it's everything that I can do to bring myself to even talk about it at this point, because I'm so jaded and so resentful from it and so bitter. I got to the point where I was willing to try anything. On the mental side, we'll just touch on anxiety and depression very briefly here. I've tried every medication under the sun. I've been prescribed every SSRI you could think of, SNRIs, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I've studied all the neurotransmitters to try and figure out what's going on in my head. Why do I feel this way? Why am I not well? Why can't I find reasonable levels of motivation to get through my work, to get through just day to day, to be okay with myself, to be in a place where I can be who I need to be for myself and for my family. It's been a struggle, let's be honest here. It's been a struggle. And I've gotten to the point where I've exhausted most of the the conventional options that I'm aware of. So I started looking at more alternative options. Ketamine was one of the first things that I looked at. Ketamine in the pharmaceutical nasal spray was interesting because as I was experimenting with it, first of all, I didn't nail the dosage. So it was only until I finally nailed the dosage at the end of my experiments that I realized that dosage is just, it's so important to get it right. I was not taking enough of the medication, and as a result, I wasn't getting the full benefits. But ketamine was very interesting, and it allowed me to separate my feelings from my perception of things. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I was able to separate myself from the depressive symptoms that I was experiencing. It was almost like my depression was over here, but my mind was over here. And I could evaluate these things separately without them crossing over and influencing each other. Because it's difficult to know when you're in a full-blown depressive episode, what's real, right? What am I experiencing right now that's based in some reality, and how much of it is just my insecurities that are coming back to bite me in the ass? How much of this is a fabrication of my mind or my past traumas? And how much of this is like something I should genuinely be concerned about? There's a lot of things that will depress you that they should depress you because they're not acceptable. There's a lot of things that go on in my relationship with my partner or with my kids that I'm like, this is not right. And it causes me to feel depressed. It should make you feel that way because that shit's not right. And if you didn't feel depressed about it, you probably wouldn't do anything to change it. So like I was explaining to my kids, there's normal depression, right? You have a fight with your partner, you lose a family member, someone passes away, you're going to feel depressed. That's normal. That's completely normal to feel that way. And nobody can tell you how to feel or how long you should grieve for. It's a process that needs to be gone through and experienced fully in order to get to the other side. There's other types of depression that are based on past traumas that are almost a habit at this point, like a default sort of, I fall into this negative groove unhealthily and I stay stuck there. That's a different type of depression, right? Just like chemical depression, where there's no reason, there's no cause for it that you can figure out. That's something else. So once you've tried all the conventional approaches to dealing with those things at the mental level, and you run out of options, you start trying things that are a little bit more drastic, we'll say. Ketamine is one of those things where it's quite a drastic alternative approach because it does have its set of side effects. It is somewhat incapacitating. For example, when I was experimenting with the ketamine, at some point the dogs just started freaking out like somebody was at the door. And I realized that if there was an intruder, if something was happening at that time, I would be useless because the dissociative effect of the ketamine makes it where your mind is like, you're not all there. It's almost like being very drunk in a way. Without the loss of equilibrium, there is some loss of muscle and movement coordination. But there was no way that I could, pick up a gun, shoot a gun, let alone, even properly prepare the gun and put the clip in. It's not something I would even attempt to do. But if there's an emergency, if there's an intruder on my property that wants to harm me and my family, or if there's a wild animal with rabies that's threatening our livestock and I need to put this animal down, I wouldn't have been able to do it in that situation. So that was a little scary for me. So there's that to factor in, that with these more potent alternative approaches, that they're not benign, that they actually will come with more significant side effects. That's why I suggest trying the more conventional approaches first, because if you get relief from that and there's minimal side effects and symptoms from that treatment, go with that, of course, right? Just like if you can get through whatever trauma it is through talk therapy, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying don't lean on the medical establishment. I'm not saying don't use those services when you need them. I'm just saying that those are not the only course of action. That's not the only way to get to the other side. And in fact, you'd be better off in a lot of ways to learn how to do these things for yourself. Then you can decide, okay, I can't quite deal with this one on my own. Once in a while, I'm going to lean on the medical establishment. Nothing wrong with that. But when you've done both and you realize that you don't have the tools and the capabilities to save yourself in that moment, it's time to start looking at some other options. I've always said to other people that have depression, I don't know that I've ever said this on a video, but I will say it now. When you get to a place of darkness in your depression or in your PTSD or whatever ailment it is that you're afflicted with, you've got to do whatever it takes to get out of there, okay? Anything and everything is better than suicide. Now, there's a time and a place. We're not going to talk about it here and now, but there's a time and a place for assisted ending of one's life. The whole MAID program and that. I think there's a time and a place for that, and I think it is appropriate in very limited circumstances. But most of the time, if you get to that point, you got to do whatever it takes to get out of that point. If that means to you taking a little ketamine and experimenting with it in a scientific and rigorous methodological way, systematic approach, yes, do that. Seems crazy to say, but like, if you're at the point where you've got nothing to live for and you're about to end your life, maybe try heroin. I don't know. Maybe that'll cause more problems. Maybe that's bad advice. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But you get what I'm saying. I'm not saying go out there and if you're feeling depressed, go out there and shoot heroin. Wouldn't recommend anybody do that. But if you're at the point where, okay, I'm sitting here, I've got nothing to live for, I'm going to kill myself. I've decided I'm going to kill myself, okay? Before you hold the gun up to your head, try a little heroin, Try some ketamine. Try a heroic dose of psychedelics. Do whatever it takes. Put yourself out there. Go do some volunteering. Quit your job. Do something drastic. Do something drastic in your life. And then flip your life upside down and say, do I still feel like this in a completely different situation, in a completely different environment? Maybe in an environment that's devoid of all of those triggers and all of that toxic negativity that you're used to. Maybe all you needed was to just separate yourself from that toxic environment and then bam, I've got a lust for life again, Maybe, like in my situation, ketamine was just not enough. It was not doing it for me. It was very interesting and it allowed me, as I said, to separate my depressive symptoms from the constant mind chatter that's in my brain, which I'll get to here in a moment. But it wasn't enough, or maybe it wasn't the medicine that I needed for my own personal chemistry and the situations that I've been in and what I had tried up to that point. I think that ketamine does have its use and it has its application, and I may still experiment with it for other reasons. But for depression, it didn't quite fit the bill. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't that it didn't address the depressive symptoms. It's that, number one, the long-term effects were not there. There was no sort of afterglow effect from it. And the other thing was it didn't address any of the relationship issues that I'd been dealing with that caused the depressive symptoms in the first place. So it wasn't helping me address that core root problem, right? Which is basically a rift in my relationship with my partner. Ketamine's not really going to help with that. It will help you go deeper in your meditations, and the revelations will come, the insights will come. I received quite a few powerful insights from when I started nailing my dose with the ketamine. But here's where I'm going with all this. Ketamine's not doing it, so where do you go from there? What's more drastic than ketamine? Well, I started thinking psychedelics. Psychedelics have huge potential for all kinds of things, from depression to anxiety to PTSD, for any number of things. Obsessive compulsive disorder, which I've got a tinge of, So maybe psychedelics was the answer. But I opted instead to go with MDMA. I'll just come out and say it. MDMA saved my life. It saved my relationship. It saved my family. But again, I'm realistic in the sense that this drug didn't innately fix things by itself. I did the work. And again, coming back to the theme of this video, I was my own hero in that moment. I was brave enough to decide, dude, I sat my family down at 44 years old, okay? I sat my 13 and 14-year-old kids down and my wife at the table and said, Daddy's going to do MDMA now, right? here's what I plan to do, family. Would really like if you supported me through it. Here are the reasons why I'm doing it, why I've chosen this path. Let's do some research. And we started watching videos. My wife was great about it. First of all, they were super receptive to the idea. And I've mentioned this to a couple other people, but in other circumstances, right, if a dad of a family, a head of a household sat his family down and said, Daddy's going to take ecstasy now, they might think Dad has lost his mind. But in my case, my family was so receptive to it, the feeling was almost like, it was one of relief. It was like, Dad's finally getting his shit together. They recognized the healer in me, the shaman in me, the doctor in me, the desire to heal, and not the desire to just escape. Because it'd be very easy to use a substance like ketamine or MDMA to escape. And I'm sure a lot of people do that. So younger people, when they use it in the party scene, I think that's kind of what they're doing. They're experimenting and they're trying to figure out themselves in the world, yes. But they're also using it in a form of escapism, which is not right. Because it's very taxing on the body. That's the other thing, is these things like ketamine is known to cause bladder issues. The dissociative effect, as I said, makes you mentally incapacitated, which can be dangerous in some situations. MDMA is known to be somewhat neurotoxic and to cause imbalances in neurotransmitter levels, and serotonin specifically. So you have to be super careful. But that's where being your own hero really means that you are also your own doctor, and you're your own scientist, you're your own researcher, you're your own psychonaut, or psyche-naut is a better way of saying it. There's a huge amount of risk involved, right? But as I explained to my family and to my kids especially, it's a calculated risk. I'm not just going to buy some, oddly cherry stamped pill, some pink pill that I really don't know what it is. I'm not going to buy it off the street. I'm buying it from a reputable vendor who has a scientific clinical testing done to prove its purity. And I tested it thoroughly with my reagent kit to make sure there's no fentanyl, to be as certain as possible that what I was taking into my body was actually what I believed it to be. Because you could buy anything on the internet, and when you get it in the mail, you have no idea what it really is, right? So that's where being your own hero, being your own researcher, being your own doctor comes into play, being your own scientist. My kids may have had concerns of, well, Dad, how do you really know that that's what it is? And before they even had that concern, I addressed it preemptively by saying, here's what I'm going to do to research this stuff and to test it to make sure there's no fentanyl in there, and that I'm actually taking what I believe the medicine to be. And that what the vendor is saying is 95% pure is actually of such purity or close, right? I'm a very big believer in anything you put in your body, whether it's water, food, medicine, drugs, anything, everything. You should know exactly what you're putting in your body, what the effect is going to be, what the short-term and long-term effects are going to be, any side effects, how it maybe reacts to other things that you're taking, supplements, other medications. How's it going to affect the people around you, not just you? Maybe you're going to experience great insights by taking a heroic dose of psychedelics, but it's going to have a very strange effect on the people around you that are not going to understand what it is you're going through, or why suddenly now all of the problems we've been talking about for months and years finally make sense to you. It may not make sense to them still, right? So just because you've reached that place of deep insight doesn't mean it'll have that same effect for the people around you. So there's that. But anyway, I started experimenting with MDMA, and I took a very modest dose after doing very thorough reagent testing, and everything I do in terms of research with this sort of thing, psychonautics, it's all recorded very, very systematically, methodologically. It's all written down in a log. I'm very careful about my dosage. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible on the scale, factoring in a swing of 5 milligrams up or down. You know what I mean? And this is after months and months of research and reading and not having ingested anything like this since before my kids were born. So I forgot, right? I completely forgot what MDMA was like. And I don't know, maybe once before, I don't know that I ever experienced pure MDMA, right? These were always these strange little pills that look like Flintstone vitamins, and you don't know what's in there. Ecstasy, first of all, is not just MDMA. It could be MDA. It could be mixed with adulterants like caffeine or amphetamines or who knows what. When you take these tablets, you don't know what you're taking in your body. Versus the pure MDMA crystal that I was able to source on the internet, which was backed by scientific evidence showing its purity, that was also reagent tested, that was also very carefully allergy tested on my skin, low doses in the body to make sure everything's okay before proceeding. Very careful, very deliberate process, just like a scientist, an actual scientist or a researcher would do. You don't need a degree. That's what I wish people would wrap their heads around. You don't need a degree in medicine. You don't need a degree in science to do these things safely and effectively at home for yourself. That's the bottom line here. And that's where we can be our own hero at the mental level. Just like you don't need to find a guru. We're going to get to this on the spiritual part. You don't need a guru to connect with your own spirit. You don't need a priest to talk to God. You don't need a middleman there. And I could say the same at the mental level. I don't need a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a doctor standing in my way, standing between me and my recovery. If that's beneficial to you and you get some help from that, by all means, go for it. Lean on it. That's what it's there for. But don't rely exclusively on that, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify. That's the name of the game across the board. Diversify. I could say the same for medicine. I could say the same for finance. I could say the same for any number of different things. Diversity is key. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering now, well, what were the results of your MDMA trials? Again, I took a very modest dose. 80 milligrams for my body weight is like a threshold dose. Like, you'll barely feel anything. But what I noticed, and as I alluded to a moment ago, nothing like psychedelics. And I had completely forgotten the effects of MDMA. I was expecting to go into a psychedelic-like experience, but that's not at all what I experienced whatsoever. First of all, it took a really long time to kick in, like over an hour. And I started to think the classic thought of, did I even take enough? Is this like the ketamine where I just didn't take enough? Do I need to take more? But I waited, and I'm glad I waited because it finally started to come out. And then almost immediately I realized, oh yeah, this is not psychedelic at all. Something else is happening here. Psychedelics have their own use, don't get me wrong. I think to bring out the spirituality in you that may have been suppressed or forgotten, the creative side of you, to get you back in touch with the spiritual and mental components that drive life for a lot of us, psychedelics are invaluable. But MDMA has a completely different application, and that's what I had put in my notes. This can be used for something totally different, and that's exactly what I experienced. First of all, when I went inward, after assessing the physical manifestations, which was mostly just a slightly elevated heart rate, sweaty palms, that sort of thing, almost like a mild anxiety. Not really anxiety though, maybe an excitement, like having a little bit too much coffee, but not wired though. But the funny thing is when I went inward to see what the inner landscape was like, all I found was quiet and calm and no mind chatter. And I was blown away by that. Because normally, like in this situation, if I close my eyes and I go inward on just an average day, completely stone cold sober, okay, let me try and replicate what the inner sound, you know what I mean? It's not really a sound, but what does my inner mind sound like? and it never stops. It just never stops. I have constant mind chatter, and sometimes I'm just used to how dysfunctional my brain is that I'm just used to it. I just, what are you going to do? You're going to just keel over and die? No, your brain's going to learn to adapt. You're going to learn to adapt with this level of mind chatter in your brain at all times. From the moment I get up in the morning till the moment I go to sleep at night, there's just a constant noise in my head. And not like schizophrenic voices, but just like mind chatter. I think everybody knows what mind chatter sounds like. Well, when I took the MDMA, and again, I'm not blasted off my ass here. I'm not rolling off the floor. I'm a very modest dose. And all I noticed was just a very clear, calm, passive, quiet state of mind. It was phenomenal. It was just beautiful. And it was such a relief to know that this was even possible, because I forgot what a clear mind sounded like. And if I were to replicate it now, it sounds like this. It's just a quiet calm. It's like being in a wood, in a forest, where there's a light breeze going through the trees, and that's all that you hear. Nothing else. It was magical. And it allowed me to get to a place in my mind where when my partner approached me to see how I was doing, we sat and had a conversation for probably 3 hours, not expecting to, but just the conversation just began to flow. And I don't even believe that I was overly entactogenic in that moment. I wasn't overly empathetic either. It's not like I was feeling what she was feeling or vice versa. It's just that I was able to articulate some deep-seated issues more coherently, and she received them in the way that I intended. Whereas a lot of the times in our regular everyday, we just don't see eye to eye, and we have trouble seeing things from each other's point of view. Whereas it was very clear, and it was very obvious, and it was easy to go back and forth, not just for me expressing my point of view to her, but vice versa. And I was able to understand her trauma better. I was able to understand our conflicts better, our past arguments, our resentfulness to each other, and how much that we really go back in the past and try to rehash the past and blame each other for things that we had done years ago, that we're not even the same people anymore, but we're still holding each other accountable for the things that we've done in the past. And just being able to work through all that trauma and to get to the other side. And then a funny thing happened. I said to her jokingly, okay, well, after these hours of conversation and making really amazing progress, I said to her, well, jokingly, next time you'll be the one to take the MDMA and I'll ask you a bunch of questions. Because really, all I did the entire time, folks, is I took some MDMA and I just wrote. For about 2 hours I wrote. And I wrote 3 pages of stuff. I did get some amazing notes that maybe I'll discuss on another video, but that's exactly what ended up happening. Is the next day, my partner took a dose, a slightly higher dose. She felt called to consume a little bit more. Perhaps that she wanted some deeper insights, I'm not sure. But she took her own notes, and I made it very clear that there are no expectations, that if no insights come for her, and that she shouldn't compare to what I experienced versus what she's experiencing. She's allowed to feel her own feelings and to come to her own conclusions. And if no answers come, no answers come. Quite honestly, the day before, I was so happy with the results that I really didn't care one way or another. Of course, I wanted her to reach her own insights and to come to her own conclusions, and for that to sort of lend itself to the conversations we had the day before. But I was so happy with the revelations that I made, I would have been happy to just stop there. But of course, she had her own insights, and she wrote her own page or page and a half of notes, and we went through them. We went through them, actually, both sets of notes together as a family. Because originally how this all happened, folks, is I have visions, and I've learned over the years to trust my visions, that I know that they're there for a reason, and I may not always be able to decipher them or decipher them completely, But it's also not necessary to completely take them apart either. But I've learned to trust them. And the vision that I had, and it didn't exactly manifest itself in that way, but the vision I had was of me taking MDMA before I'd even sourced it or acquired it, with my family around me, with an eye shade on and headphones. I don't know how I was talking to my family in that moment, but they were gathered around me like they would for any other sick person. And that's what it is I was sick. And I had a vision of my family being around me as I was laying in bed, trying to work through this trauma, and them just being there for me. And though it didn't happen exactly in that way, that's basically what happened, is my family rallied around me and gave me the opportunity that I needed to release all of this past trauma and to work through it in my own way. And if that meant taking a little MDMA, then they were willing to support me through that. And I feel eternally grateful to them for having given me that opportunity, because it worked. It worked. Like we talked about earlier, we talked about, well, did it work? Was it a hack? In this case, it did work, and it was a hack. But it was one that was beneficial, and it's one that has been highly researched at this point to prove that it's effective. It's not something that I was just taking my best guess at, which we'll talk about here in a moment for the spiritual side of things. But it was more than just a best guess. It was an informed decision. It came with risks, but they were calculated risks, as I said. But it worked, right? Hard to argue with the results where we were able to move past a decade or more of pent-up trauma, right? From a simple 2 or 3 hour conversation, 2 days. Imagine where we would be now if we had done that for ourselves a year ago or 2 years ago, right? I'm very thankful that it happened when it happened, and maybe that's when it was supposed to happen and there was no other way. But I'd like to think that this could have been done many years ago and that we would all be the better for it. And I can apply that same mentality from here going forward, knowing that now that it's been accomplished and we've worked through this trauma, now we can progress with our lives together and not be prone to the same problems, the same recurring issues that keep coming back over and over again. The kind of stuff that makes you feel crazy because you're like, how am I dealing with the same things day in and day out, trying to deal with things the same way, expecting different results? It's the definition of insanity. Doing the same things over and over, expecting different results. And that's exactly what was happening to us. But this simple trial, experimentation, which was a wild success, was able to break that cycle of trauma. So, really hard to argue with those results. But that's me being my own hero at the mental level, okay? Now, let's talk about the spiritual side of things, which I also, I lump up law and any legal issues and anything of that nature, freedom, truth, all that stuff. I lump that up to the spiritual path because it is very spiritual. Natural law, higher law are pretty much the same thing as far as I'm concerned. That's the basis for law. I forget where I saw it, but someone one time said that natural law is the underpinning of the legal system. So wherever, the acts, codes, and statutes falter or have gaps in them, that's where the natural law shines through, because it's really the underpinning of our entire system. Natural law is basically the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would want done unto you. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. Don't encroach. Stay true to your contracts, your commitments, right? These are the golden rules. Hard to argue with that too, right? It doesn't matter how much time goes by, right? The legal system is very prone to changing based on geographical location or the whims of the politicians or time, whatever. Natural law never changes. It will never change. It has never changed. It doesn't matter if 100 years goes by. There's not going to be a society that's going to spring up and go, we're okay with murder or theft. Like, it's not going to happen. Rape. Like, we're cool with rape here. You can come live here, but you have to accept the fact that you might get raped or your family might get raped. No society, no people, no individuals are ever going to accept that because it's counter to natural law. Doesn't matter how much time has gone by. Doesn't matter where you go in the universe. Doesn't matter about your geographical location or the whims of the politicians. That matters not, because natural law doesn't change. And those things that are contrary to natural law don't get better or worse, for that matter, with outside factors. It just doesn't change. It's like gravity. Gravity doesn't care. It's a force of nature. It just doesn't care about how you feel about it. It's going to exact its force equally across the entire universe. It's the same idea with natural law. With the law, though, it's extra tricky, because though you have, on the mental and physical side, you have your gurus. There's no shortage of gurus or people that think they've got it all figured out. And if you just buy their subscription, or if you just buy their book or their service, that your life will be just as good as theirs, right? There are such people in the physical and mental world, for sure, but there's an awful lot of them in the spiritual world. Holy crap. Overwhelmingly so. And the same could be said at the law and legal level. Everybody thinks that their system is the one true system. Everybody thinks that their religion is the one true religion. I'm reminded of Taoism, where anybody who claims to know the Tao doesn't know the Tao. Anybody who claims to be able to name the Tao, even, the Tao that has a name is not the Tao. It's not the true Tao. It just isn't. It can't be named. It can't be just explained away. It can't be just, capitalized on and turned into a theory or some educational program that people just sign up for and then everything's good. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way for the law either. So when it comes to the spiritual side and the law side of things, I've reluctantly accepted now that there are no heroes out there that are coming to save me. And that if I want to save myself and my family, I'm going to have to do it for myself. That means crafting my own notices. That means doing my own inner work, my own shadow work, my own spiritual work, my own light warrior work. I have to do this for myself. And this is one of those very few situations where you have to reinvent the wheel, unfortunately. Or fortunately, however you want to look at it. And again, see what I just did there? It's a process of checking yourself constantly. Do I know what the fuck I'm talking about? Have I evaluated things from both sides? Going back to the Taoist approach, have I looked at it from the light? Have I looked at it from the dark? Have I looked at it from the middle ground? Do I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about? And if I don't, then stop acting like I do. It's okay to say, I don't know. How many people do you know that they won't ever say, I don't know? They'll fill in the gap with some bullshit that they'll create that sounds true, right? Sounds valid, but it's not, because it's based in insecurity, it's based in a wild guess, and it's based on your opinion. And your opinion on things doesn't make it fact. So really, we have to find these avenues of insight and understanding and knowledge and wisdom for ourselves. And as I said, that means crafting your own notices. Read the books, okay? Take the courses. I'm not saying don't. Law for Mankind is one that I wish everybody would take. It doesn't have all the answers. It's not going to solve all your problems for you. But what it will do, it'll get your brain working. And it'll start to get you to realize that, holy shit, there is no Mr. Government. John was right. Greg was right. There is no Mr. Government. There's only those of mankind. There's only other men and women. There's only this man or this woman hiding behind their title or their position or their role, barking orders at me. But yet, it's still just another man or a woman. So when you write your notices, you're writing them directly to the other man or woman. And if we're all equal in the society, right, these legal societies love to say, in a free and democratic society, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, in a free and democratic society, we're all equals here. So you can't tell me what to do. Your say, your value, your worth is equal to mine. That doesn't give you rights over my property. That doesn't give you a right to administer my property. That doesn't give you a right to take my property away, which could include my freedom, my health, my autonomy. Really, in the end, we're deciding these things for ourselves. We want to believe so badly that we're powerless to these things, to the powers that shouldn't be. But really, it's basically a voluntarist system already. And I would love if it was more anarchistic, if it was more voluntarist. Yes, that would be better than a statist, collectivist society of forced involvement. But it's already pretty damn voluntarist if you think about it. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. You're doing these things voluntarily, even if that means a lot of the times, some of the times, going to jail, paying a fine, standing before a judge. You're doing a lot of these things, if not all these things, voluntarily, and you just don't know it. Because if people are the ones that give these legal acts, statutes, and codes power and authority, then the power and authority comes from the people, not from one person, not from one man or one woman, but from all of us, from we the people. And when you understand that, and when you understand where money comes from and how it's entirely a credit-based system, and they're basically creating money out of thin air. It's not even money, because money is just gold and silver, but they're creating this currency out of thin air, this fiat currency, which is backed by nothing. You know, and you understand how it really is a system of unlimited credit that the wealthy people of the world have figured out a long time ago, and that's why they don't have to pay taxes. They just live in debt, and they just create money from debt, and they're part of the system, right? They're part of that creation of the currency. They're playing the game, right? Most of us are still trying to scratch our heads going, I don't understand the game, let alone how to play it. And a lot of us will doubt ourselves, will doubt our abilities to be the hero in the first place. This is probably the biggest insight on the spiritual side of all this, is that you have to believe in yourself. I guarantee you would not get to that place without first believing in yourself and believing in your true power, believing in the fact that you are source, that you're not just the body, that you're not just the mind, and for that matter, you're not just the spirit. You are all these things. And like I talked about in one of my recent videos, it's really a matter of not separating yourself from everything else, from dissolving those boundaries and those lines, those imaginary lines that we create for ourselves and we create for others and we create for these groups of people. They don't exist. The lines don't exist, right? You could pick up a globe or a map and you'll see lines everywhere. Those lines, go find them in nature. Go find them. They're not there. They don't exist. It's one big planet, or one little planet, however you want to look at it. But there's no lines there. The lines are created by people to segregate and basically for social control. But you don't have to be a part of that system. That's the thing. We can reinvent this system. We don't need a system, really. But you can also create the law. A lot of people don't realize that either. That's why I say, take the course. Take the Law for Mankind course, but knowing that it's not going to have all the answers, it's just going to kind of get you started. The way I explained it recently is in Super Mario RPG, there's a part where you go see the frog, and you get to a point at the water where as you approach the water, these stones, these stepping stones appear from the water, and they start appearing one after the other. Well, the books, the law books, and your Black's Law Dictionary and all that shit, and Brandon Joe Williams and Brother Truth and Law for Mankind and all these other things and the Robert Menards in the world, they will help you, okay? They will help you find the first couple of stones. And maybe they'll even help you to cross onto that first stone or that second stone. But that's as far as they can take you. The rest of the way, let's say there's 20 stones to get to the frog guy. Those 18 other stones, you need to find a way to cross those by yourself. Not holding hands with someone else that's already been across, not even guessing, not even trying to wing it. You have to go through with a certain level of certainty, with confidence, with knowing that I've done my research, I've read my books, I've taken my course, I know enough to be dangerous now, I have the confidence I need to go forward and hop across the rest of these 18 stones to get to the other side. When I get to the other side, only then can I maybe even make suggestions to someone else on how to find their first couple of stones. Until you get to the other side, shut the fuck up. Okay? Sorry if that comes across harshly, but I'm so goddamn tired of fucking gurus that think that they've got it all figured out and they won't help anybody else because they're judging them as being inferior somehow, or they didn't do enough research and they haven't educated themselves. We're all doing our best with the time and energy that we have. Most of us are trying to juggle a family and a full-time job while doing this, right? We don't have the luxury of just free-falling and just saying, fuck work. If you're a single guy or gal and you don't have a family and you lost your job and you want to just move forward, taking a chance for a couple of months and see what happens, go for it. All the power to you. I hope you succeed. But you're the exception to the rule. Most of us are having to balance being in the old world, in the old system, right? And somehow finding a way out while also managing our responsibilities day to day, which is insanely hard. Especially when you add to that things like physical ailments, mental issues, right? Fights with your family and your partner, an overwhelming influx of work. Whatever it is, most of us are expected to balance all of these different things and also find a way out of the system. Unlikely to ever happen. However, if you find your true worth, if you find your confidence, if you are able to get to a place of spiritual wholeness, the paths become very clear. The paths become ever more easy to traverse. Those stones become wider and they accommodate your footsteps that much easier. And the whole process just becomes easier at the physical level, mental level, spiritual level. When you find that spiritual wholeness, everything gets easier. Okay? But again, being realistic that it's not going to solve all your problems either. They're not just going to go away because you found Zen. The Zen is just another one of those things that helps you to find the stones. It's not going to put your foot one in front of the other. You have to do that. Only you can do that. No one else can do that for you. No one else can move your feet across those stones. You have to do that for yourself. You have to be your own hero. That's the point of all this. And we're wrapping it up now. We're getting to the end. This has been this has been a very powerful thought stream. I had a vision earlier today of this. I'm making it happen now. I'm being my own hero. I'm trying to be a hero for you. But really what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to bring out the hero in you so that you can be a hero for yourself. The same as what I've done. I've been blessed to have crossed paths with other people who have done the work already. And I think where the frustration lied a lot of the times for me is I was like, well, these people clearly, friends of mine, family members, people that I perceived as gurus before, now I realize that they're just people like me, but people that I elevated to maybe unfairly or unjustly elevated them to heights that they didn't deserve or that they didn't want even. But I always saw them as having their shit figured out. And why aren't you helping other people to do that? It almost evoked a little bit of resentment, a little bit of like, what, you think your shit don't stink? Like, what? How come you're not helping other people? But they were. They were helping other people the whole time. I just didn't realize it. But they were helping other people in living it themselves and embodying these things. So that way, when you look to these people, you go, well, that guy, that girl's doing it for herself. Why can't I do that? And that's the conclusion I come to all the time when I watch these law videos or these gurus that claim that they've got it all figured out, that they have an access, a direct path to God that you don't have. I always come to the same conclusion. I say, if you can do it, I can do it too. Because you don't have some special ability that I don't have. Just like I don't have any innate special abilities that you don't have. Anything I'm doing for myself in my life, which quite honestly, I'm trying to keep myself humble, it's not that much. I've done some amazing things. I won't say that I haven't. But is it like mind-blowing stuff? Am I blowing it out of the water? Is it like, am I living in a mansion? No. Am I happy? I'm getting there. I feel like I'm getting there. I'm on the right path, right? I'm on the path of hopping from stone to stone. And that's better than I was a year ago. It's better than I was 5 years ago. Way better. So, pat yourself on the back. Give yourself credit where it's due. If you're on that path and you're hopping from stone to stone, be happy with that. Be proud of yourself that you're even trying. Because a lot of other people, not that we're trying to compare here, but I think the levels of apathy are so high now that people just don't even give a shit if they're on the path or not. If they're hopping stones, they just don't care. They couldn't care less. Because I think a lot of the times, the day-to-day is just so overwhelming, they don't have room for philosophical or religious or spiritual contemplation. There's no room left in their life for that. I mean, half of these people don't even see each other. They don't even see their families till the end of the day. And then maybe at best they're around the supper table for an hour at the end of the day. Once a day, an hour with your family, maybe. Most of the time, like, the kids are probably off on their phones. Like, I don't want to stereotype, but like, that's the way it is right now. That's the state of the world. It's really sad, but it also gives me hope when I talk to other people, in some of these groups, and I realize that, it's not just me, other people are doing this. Other people are doing it in their own way. And some of them are more advanced than me. Some of them are not quite at this point. But again, it's not even worth comparing. We're not comparing because we're really comparing apples and oranges at this point. Everybody's path is unique. Everybody's struggles, everybody's circumstances are unique. Everybody's dealing with different issues, different opportunities for growth and evolution. I mean, you can lend support in terms of empathy and camaraderie. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to say, oh yeah, I've been there with that kind of thing, and this is how I felt about it, and this is kind of how I got myself to the other side, but not with the intention of, this is what you should do too. This is what I did. Then you can take that information and go, okay, there's some similarities here where I can leverage a couple of things, maybe, but most of all, more than the majority of it, a very high percentage, in fact, is just forging your own path. And that's all it comes down to. And it feels really awkward at first, guys. I'm not going to say it doesn't. Like when you're writing that first notice, even those first couple of episodes of Law for Mankind, you're just not sure. You're just not sure of yourself. You're not sure of the information. You don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe that it could be that simple. And it's not easy. I almost said easy there. It's not easy. This path is, if anything, it's not easy. It's difficult. But it's simple. It's very simple. Not easy. Simple. But we tend to overcomplicate it. We get in our own way. That's the biggest issue, is we get in our own way. Move yourself aside and believe you can. Because all the naysaying and all the reasons why you can't are what's limiting you. Right? But it feels fucking awkward at first when you're writing out that first notice and the words just aren't coming naturally. I strongly encourage everyone to use the law common to I. Use that style of language at first. And then if you want to go back to regular English after, that's fine. Just don't go back to legalese, whatever you do. Don't write that way unless you're an actual lawyer or part of the legal society. Otherwise, that language doesn't apply to you. Just like if you were not Chinese and you were not living in China, then you probably wouldn't speak Chinese. If you're not part of the legal society and you don't speak legalese, you don't use legalese language. It's just obvious. But, get to the point, try the law common to I language first, because it is written that way for a specific reason, and I'll let you discover why that is. But eventually get back to a place of just writing it in your own words, because that's how you're going to ensure that it's heartfelt. That it's coming from you and you're not just emulating someone else or copying somebody else's template. And again, get out of this frame of mind of, is it going to work? What does that mean? Is it going to work? You don't need anyone else's acknowledgement. When you send off that notice, you don't need confirmation that it was even received. You've done your part. You've sent that out into the world. You've caused your ripples. You've expressed your law. Your work is done. Until they respond with another notice or come knocking at your door, which is unlikely, you've done your work. Now leave it, okay? Leave it alone. Hopefully we can get to a point where we can start leveraging AI to help us with these things, maybe even automated to a certain degree, where if you are presented with, legal templates, you can respond in turn with another legal template. I don't know if I'm completely sold on that idea. It depends on the situation. If there's someone of mankind, another man or a woman who's causing you harm, that needs to be a notice that comes from the heart. If it's some automated thing that was printed by a public servant and you want to respond in turn with something that was printed, a template of some sort, and they're trying to hold you accountable to some fictional amount where no one's actually out any money and it's just legal bullshit, okay, maybe that's a time to use a template. But really, there shouldn't be that many of those, you know. Right now, I'm dealing with CRA, which is pretty much dealt with at this point, the township, which I still have to deal with, and some traffic tickets that I just don't want to take laying down. But those are three things that can often seem overwhelming in combination with your having to take care of a family and to work a full-time job and deal with health issues or whatever else. Those three things that I just listed could be very overwhelming for you, and I felt that. But really, again, not easy, but simple. Simple to deal with. Take the time, Saturday afternoon, write your notices, get them out there, and be done with it. And keep them simple. Don't do what I do and overcomplicate it, get stuck in analysis paralysis, and just question yourself. Write it out, get those three main bullet points out there, and just leave it at that. The bottom line, folks, is, as I said, and I'll say it one more time, you are your own hero. Superman is not going to fly down and come and save you from this one. Or you shouldn't expect that Superman will ever come. Maybe I shouldn't use a copyrighted trademark or whatever. But like, the hero in shining armor is just not coming. And if you're sitting there waiting to find it on the internet or for somebody to come and save you, you're going to be waiting a long time. And probably you'll end up in jail, having your assets taken away, having your home repossessed, whatever. Maybe your kids taken away. You're going to wait for something bad to happen, or are you going to take your fate into your own hands and do something about it? And that doing something about it could be just crafting a very simple one-page notice to the people. And don't forget, it's always another man or another woman. It's never Mr. Government or Mr. Police Officer or whatever. These fictional titles and entities don't exist. It's always those of mankind doing these things through the guise of their titles and their positions. But really, we need to hold the men and women accountable for their actions, even in the course of their duties, right? Even more in the course of their duties. They need to be held accountable. They can't hide behind their insurance coverage or their liability protection. Doing something about it is very simply writing a short one-pager with just 2 or 3 bullets on it that expresses, here's the situation, here's what happened, I'm looking for remedy, and I want to remain in honor, and here's what I'm willing to pay if it's found that I'm actually at fault here, because I'm an honorable man or woman, and here's how much I can afford. Any more than that would cause harm to myself and to my family, so I can't pay you more than this. But that's only if you can prove to me X, Y, Z, right? And that's just a show of good faith. That's all that is. That's just saying that if I actually did hurt another man or a woman, or I did something wrong to another man or woman, I will come forward and provide compensation for that wrong or that harm, because I'm an honorable man or woman. It's quite simple. Again, simple. Not easy. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing right. That doesn't mean that it's easy. Simple, yes, but it's going to be a long, difficult, challenging, drawn-out process in all likelihood. Does that mean you shouldn't do it? You should shy away from it? You should run away? No. You need to find your warrior spirit and be your own freaking hero in this story. Because this story is your story. How's the story going to get written? How's it going to end? Does Prince Charming come along and save you at the end of the day? Are you writing a fictional story here? Or is this one that's based in reality, where midway through the story, not at the end, midway through the story, the hero gets their shit together and starts actually being their own hero and starts saving the day for themselves and stops separating themselves from everything else around them and stops seeing this life as some sort of a fight, right? Or these challenges that present themselves to you as a fight, as an argument, as something that you should complain over or argue with someone about. No. An expression of the law is just that. It's an expression. It's a one-way conveyance of information. Here you go. Boom. You put it out in the world. Now you're done. That's it. And then if another notice comes, you deal with it at that time. You don't worry about it. You don't sit there for a week. Oh, am I going to get another letter in the mail? What am I going to do? No, have a basic plan that if you do receive one, you have a general idea what you're going to do. But it shouldn't be unlike what you did in the first place anyway. And if anything, it should be a lot easier the second and third time around, because now you're just saying, hey, I've already addressed this. Go back to that first notice I sent you. They send another one. Okay, well, go back to the first two. Go back to the first three. Hey, you're not reading these things I'm sending you? What's going on here? To be very simple. Boy, that's a lot longer of a video than I wanted to make. My battery's almost dead, and I think my hard drive's full. But I seem to be right on time, right where I need to be. And hopefully I've expressed that in a way that has resonated with you, and that you start to see your own power and your own worth. You start to see yourself as the hero that you are in your own story. Because why would we be writing a story where we're the victim in all of it? Nobody wants to read that. People want to hear heroic stories of how you were able to overcome adversity. That's a good book. That's a book I want to read to get me started on my first stone or two. How is someone else able to get to the other side? And then how am I going to use that inspiration to create my own story and to be my own hero? That's where we should be in our thought process and our spiritual evolution, in a place of forging a path, each one of us for ourselves. That's a beautiful thing. That's a world I want to live in. So I'll leave it at that. No one came to save me, folks. I saved myself. The physical side of it, I saved myself. The mental side of it, I saved myself. I saved my family in the process too, right? And that's the other thing, is by saving yourself, by doing your work, you're benefiting everyone around you. Not even the people in your immediate vicinity. These things ripple out into the universe. And other people, neighbors, community members are going to catch your vibe, and they're going to all of a sudden have this jolt of confidence. Where did that come from? All the while not knowing that Joe Blow down the road just had an amazing revelation and reached the insight that he needed in order to forge ahead with his own life. Who knows? I mean, it has the ability to heal past generational trauma and future generations. You know, it's been said that it heals 7 generations before and 7 generations after. Think about that. That's the work you're doing today, is having this effect in the past, changing the past. Yes, you can change the past, and also changing the future. So just remember that. No one's coming to save you. You got to save yourself. The end. See ya.